her gaze unforgettable, her smile immortal. But Audrey Hepburn's story, that was never fully told. She was the image of elegance, the epitome of grace, a woman whose mere presence seemed to whisper of refinement and an almost ethereal beauty. Yet beneath the meticulously crafted façade, behind the iconic roles and the dazzling public appearances, lay a labyrinth of unspoken struggles, profound sorrows, and an unyielding quest for something more authentic than the relentless glare of fame. The world saw the perfect silhouette, the charming ingenue, the humanitarian saint, but what truly unfolded within the quiet chambers of her heart? Did Audrey Hepburn ever truly feel beautiful, not just as a screen siren, but as the fragile woman who had emerged from the crucible of war, forever marked by its shadows? Or was the flawless image merely a shield, meticulously constructed to protect a vulnerability too profound for public consumption? What hidden secrets might still remain untold behind her public image, decades after her silent departure from the world stage? She emerged from the shadows of war, a delicate flower blooming amidst devastation. Born Etta van Heemstra, Hepburn Rustin in Ixelles, Belgium in 1929, her early years were steeped in the grim reality of World War II. Her British father, Joseph Rustin, a man with unsettling pro-Nazi sympathies, vanished from her life when she was just a child, leaving her Dutch aristocratic mother, Baroness Ella van Heemstra, to navigate the treacherous currents of occupied Arnhem, Netherlands. This early abandonment was more than just a void. It was a wound that festered, shaping her into a woman who would forever crave stability and belonging, a quiet yearning for the anchors that had been so cruelly severed. The war itself was an unforgiving teacher, its lessons etched deeply into her very being. Starvation was a constant companion, forcing young Audrey and her family to subsist on tulip bulbs and grass, their bodies frail, their spirits tested. The incessant sounds of bombs, the gnawing hunger that never truly subsided, the pervasive, suffocating fear of discovery and death. These were the chilling lullabies of her youth. Yet even in this crucible of suffering, a quiet resilience began to forge itself within her, a steely determination cloaked in an almost ethereal gentleness. She performed secret ballet recitals, a fragile defiance against the surrounding despair, using her art to raise meager funds for the Dutch resistance. These acts, born of courage and conviction in the face of overwhelming odds, were the first whispers of the remarkable woman she would become, glimpses of a spirit that refused to be extinguished. The profound lessons of human fragility, the fleeting nature of peace, and the enduring power of the human spirit to find beauty and purpose amidst desolation were not merely observed but etched into her very being during these harrowing years. Could these early childhood experiences have laid the foundation for her later profound compassion and her unwavering dedication to humanitarian causes, transforming her personal pain into a wellspring of global empathy? Audrey's ascent to stardom was not a smooth, effortless glide across a polished floor, but a testament to sheer perseverance, relentless self-doubt, and a series of destiny-altering encounters that felt both miraculous and terrifying. The immediate aftermath of the war saw her pursuing the rigorous, disciplined world of ballet in London, a dream that ultimately proved elusive, a cruel mirage. Her war-ravaged body, weakened by malnutrition and permanently marked by its privations, coupled with her towering height, made a professional ballet career an impossibility. A crushing blow to a young soul yearning for artistic expression, for a stage to call her own. Undeterred, yet carrying the heavy weight of that shattered dream, she pivoted to modeling and the demanding, often unforgiving world of chorus lines, enduring countless auditions. The sting of rejection, a familiar companion, and the constant pressure to conform to an industry that often overlooked her unconventional charm. The dazzling promise of the stage often felt like an insurmountable barrier, a glittering world just beyond her reach. Her initial forays into cinema were modest, fleeting appearances in British films where glimpses of her unique charm, her innate grace, and a quiet intensity began to emerge, hinting at the star she was destined to become. However, it was her pivotal, transformative role in the 1951 Broadway production of Gigi that irrevocably altered her trajectory, thrusting her into an unfamiliar spotlight. Colette, the legendary French author, saw something extraordinary. Something undeniably Gigi in Audrey, famously declaring, "She's my Gigi." This sudden, overwhelming recognition catapulted Audrey into a dizzying new reality, a whirlwind of attention she had never sought, but with it came an immense, almost suffocating weight of expectation. She was, at heart, an untrained actress, relying on an intuitive grace, an inherent vulnerability that resonated with audiences, and a fierce dedication to her craft. The monumental leap from stage to screen was solidified when the esteemed director William Wyler, captivated by her unique presence, cast her in Roman Holiday, 1953. The film was a triumph, a cinematic fairy tale that earned her an Academy Award for Best Actress and transformed her into an overnight sensation, a global darling. Yet behind the triumphant headlines, the flashing cameras, and the adoring crowds, the struggle persisted, deeper and more insidious than ever. The relentless scrutiny, the grueling hours on set, the perpetual demand for perfection from an industry that was both her salvation and her tormentor, each chipped away at her fragile self-confidence, amplifying her deepest insecurities. She grappled with persistent doubts about her unconventional beauty, her slender, almost waif-like physique a stark and often criticized contrast to the voluptuous stars of the era. Was the dizzying success she achieved truly worth all the pain she endured, the constant silent battle against self-doubt, and the relentless, often brutal demands of a burgeoning career that threatened to consume her very essence? With Roman Holiday, Sabrina, Funny Face, and the iconic Breakfast at Tiffany's, Audrey Hepburn ascended to an unparalleled zenith of global stardom, her name becoming synonymous with elegance, sophistication, and timeless beauty. She transformed into a style icon, a cinematic muse, and one of Hollywood's most cherished and adored actresses. Her ethereal beauty, her distinctive, almost revolutionary fashion sense, a graceful departure from the prevailing hourglass figures, and her captivating screen presence spellbound audiences across the globe. She embodied a sophisticated charm, an innate grace, and an understated allure that set her apart from her contemporaries, cementing her status as a cinematic legend, a true star in a constellation of manufactured glamour. Yet beneath the dazzling lights of fame, the perpetual flashbulbs, and the seemingly perfect, enviable life, a profound sense of isolation and internal struggle often plagued her, a quiet sorrow that no amount of adoration could truly extinguish. The relentless cycle of film productions, each more demanding than the last, the exhausting promotional tours that spanned continents, the endless public appearances where she was always on, all left precious little room for a private existence, for the quiet moments of self-reflection she so desperately craved. The constant public scrutiny of her personal relationships, whispered about in tabloids and shouted from magazine covers, the incessant commentary on her weight, her every movement, it was an unyielding, exhausting burden that chipped away at her soul. While her on-screen persona exuded joy, lightness, and an almost childlike innocence off-screen, she grappled with deeply personal battles that felt far heavier than any fictional drama. The lingering, insidious effects of her wartime trauma continued to haunt her, a ghost in the machine of her glamorous life, surfacing in moments of quiet reflection and persistent anxieties. A profound, aching yearning for motherhood was repeatedly, agonizingly thwarted by a string of devastating miscarriages, each loss a fresh dagger to her heart, leaving her with an emptiness that fame could never fill. And then there were the complexities and heartbreaks of her marriages, which often felt like public performances in themselves, every joy and sorrow magnified by the relentless gaze of the world. She yearned with a raw and desperate longing that transcended the superficiality of her fame for a quiet, stable family life, a sanctuary away from the blinding lights, a stark and painful contrast to the relentless glamour that defined her public image. The world adored her fragility, her perceived vulnerability, seeing it as part of her unique, captivating charm. Yet it was this very fragility that often masked a deep-seated sadness, a pervasive melancholia, a quiet ache for a life she could never fully possess. Behind all that glamour was there an unbearable loneliness that nobody saw, a quiet desperation for a normalcy that fame relentlessly denied her, forever trapping her in a gilded cage. The unraveling was quiet, insidious, a slow erosion rather than a sudden explosive cataclysm. One particular night in Rome, the city of cinematic dreams and bittersweet memories became a stark landscape of her internal collapse. The recent miscarriage, yet another in a string of devastating losses, had left her a hollowed shell, her spirit fractured, her hope dwindling. She had retreated to her opulent hotel room, a luxurious cage, and locked herself in the vast marbled bathroom, seeking a fleeting moment of solitude from a world that demanded so much. The pristine marble gleamed under the soft lights. The gilded fixtures mocked her inner turmoil, reflecting a distorted image of the woman within. She stared into the mirror, her own reflection a stranger, the luminous star replaced by a visage of profound exhaustion and grief. This wasn't the luminous Audrey of the silver screen, nor the composed, resilient Humanitarian. This was just Edda, raw and exposed, stripped bare of all artifice. She picked up a compact, her hands trembling slightly, and with an almost robotic precision began to apply makeup. Stroke by painstaking stroke, foundation to cover the pallor of sleepless nights, eyeliner to define eyes that held too much sorrow, lipstick to paint a semblance of a smile that felt utterly alien on her trembling lips. She built the façade, the familiar beloved Audrey, layer by agonizing layer, a mask she had perfected over decades. And then, with a sudden, almost violent swipe of a cotton pad, she began to take it all off. Mascara smudged, foundation streaked, the perfect mask dissolving into a messy smear, revealing the raw, vulnerable skin beneath. She repeated the ritual over and over, an almost feverish compulsion, a desperate act of self-excavation. Apply, erase, build, dismantle. Each cycle was a frantic, desperate attempt to find something, anything, beneath the superficial layers. The roles she played, the expectations she bore, the crushing weight of public adoration that felt so empty in that moment. Was this the real her, the Edda hidden beneath the icon? Or was she merely an exquisitely crafted illusion, forever lost between the woman she was and the icon she had become, unable to distinguish between the two? Each application and removal was a frantic search for her true face, a desperate plea to unearth the authentic self buried beneath years of performing and pleasing, a soul yearning for release. The opulent bathroom, meant for comfort and luxury, became a stark confessional, a silent witness to a soul in profound crisis, a woman teetering on the brink. The silence of the night was punctuated only by her ragged breaths, the whispered, desperate questions to her own reflection. Who was she really when the lights went down and the applause faded, when the world turned its back? The tears came then, hot and relentless, blurring the lines between what was real and what was merely a reflection, an image. This was her emotional peak, not on a grand stage with a standing ovation, but in the desolate quiet of her own shattered self. She wasn't seeking beauty in that moment. She was desperately trying to find herself, to reclaim a soul that felt fragmented, torn apart by the relentless, all-consuming demands of her extraordinary life. It was a silent scream, a profound yearning for authenticity in a world that only saw the dazzling surface. Did this tragic event mark her downfall? Or was it simply the tipping point of deeper, unaddressed problems that fame had only exacerbated? The night in Rome, a silent testament to her breaking point, marked a profound turning of the tide for Audrey. It wasn't an immediate transformation, but a gradual, deliberate recalibration of her internal compass. The years of relentless performing, the emotional toll of repeated miscarriages, and the corrosive effect of public scrutiny had left her depleted. What emerged from that quiet despair was a fierce determination to reclaim her life, to nurture the parts of herself that had been so neglected. She began a conscious, painful process of shedding the layers of the Audrey Hepburn persona, seeking to reconnect with Edda, the vulnerable girl who craved normalcy. This was not an act of surrender, but an act of profound self-preservation. She actively sought solace in the quiet beauty of nature, retreating to her beloved home in Switzerland, a sanctuary far removed from the flashing lights of Hollywood. There, amidst the serene mountains and verdant landscapes, she found a semblance of peace, a space to heal and reflect. Her pursuit of motherhood, though fraught with earlier heartbreaks, became an even more central focus. The birth of her sons, Sean and Luca, in different phases of her life, brought a profound joy and fulfillment that no cinematic triumph ever could. These were the anchors she had always yearned for, the tangible connections that grounded her in a reality far more meaningful than the manufactured dreams of the screen. She embraced motherhood with an almost fierce dedication, prioritizing her children's well-being above all else, often making significant career sacrifices to ensure their stability and her presence in their lives. The perfect movie role, the glittering awards. These began to pale in comparison to the simple, profound joys of family life. This shift wasn't easy. The ingrained habits of a lifetime lived in the public eye, the constant allure of the spotlight, were difficult to completely abandon. Yet she actively cultivated a private existence, a cocoon of domesticity that allowed her to explore and nurture her authentic self, far from the critical gaze of the world. She rediscovered simple pleasures, gardening, reading, cooking, and most importantly, forging deep, meaningful connections with a select few trusted friends who saw beyond the icon. Can anyone ever truly escape from the shadow of their darkest moments? Or do those moments simply become guideposts, forever shaping the path towards a fragile, hard-won peace? Her relationship with her eldest son, Sean Hepburn Farrer, offered another window into the labyrinth of Audrey's complex inner world. Sean, in his poignant memoir, described his mother as a woman who was both near and far, a haunting paradox that encapsulated the essence of their bond. He recalled a mother who was present, loving, and deeply attentive in moments, yet simultaneously shrouded in an almost ethereal distance, as if a part of her remained perpetually on display, even for her own children. "I didn't know if she ever stopped performing, even for us," Sean once confessed, a sentiment that speaks volumes about the pervasive influence of her celebrity. This created a subtle, unspoken tension. Audrey, a woman who had endured such profound abandonment in her own childhood, yearned deeply to be a mother, to create the stable, loving family she had never fully known. Yet the ingrained habits of a lifetime lived in the public eye. The relentless pressure to maintain an ideal image often clashed with the messy, unfiltered reality of motherhood. She was perpetually caught between the innate desire to nurture and connect and the subconscious need to uphold the polished persona that had become her second skin. This internal conflict, though rarely articulated, was palpable. Sean's words hinted a mother who, even in the most intimate moments, carried the invisible weight of her public identity. Unable to fully shed the expectations that had defined her for decades. This added a layer of quiet melancholy to their relationship, a profound irony for a woman who so desperately sought genuine connection. The chasm between her profound desire to be a devoted mother and the inescapable shadow of her iconic image created a nuanced dynamic, showcasing the profound cost of a life lived in the unforgiving glare of fame. As the silver screen began to dim for Audrey Hepburn, a new, far more profound stage emerged, the humanitarian battlefield. Her commitment to UNICEF was not a gentle retirement. It was a fierce, all-consuming passion that consumed her final years. This wasn't merely a celebrity endorsement. It was a crusade born from the visceral memories of her own wartime starvation. She threw herself into the work with a relentless dedication that often pushed her to the brink of physical and emotional exhaustion. Ethiopia, Bangladesh, Sudan. These were not exotic destinations but landscapes of unimaginable suffering, where she bore witness to the skeletal forms of children ravaged by famine and disease. She waded through muddy camps, cradled emaciated infants, and looked into eyes that held the wisdom of ancient sorrows. The images she brought back, the stories she told, were not merely statistics. They were living, breathing testaments to human suffering delivered with an urgency that resonated deeply. What the media often failed to capture was the sheer scale of her behind-the-scenes efforts. She wasn't just posing for cameras, she was lobbying tirelessly, sitting in countless meetings making impassioned pleas for funding, battling bureaucratic inertia. One particularly harrowing moment that encapsulated her unwavering commitment occurred during a hearing at the United Nations headquarters. She stood before a panel of distinguished delegates, her voice, usually soft, now trembling with raw emotion. She recounted in painstaking detail the story of a child she had held in her arms, a tiny hand clinging to hers before the small life simply ebbed away. As she spoke, the elegant composure, the carefully maintained façade, shattered. Tears streamed down her face, unbidden, undeterred by the formal setting. He just went, she whispered, her voice cracking, her vulnerability laid bare for the world to see. It was a moment of profound, visceral empathy, a raw display of the personal toll her work exacted. This wasn't merely a famous actress lending her name to a cause. This was a woman fighting a silent, desperate war against apathy and despair, pushing herself to the very edge of endurance. Her life's twilight was not one of restful retreat, but of fierce, tireless advocacy, elevating her far beyond the realm of celebrity and into the hallowed ground of a true humanitarian warrior. Were these final decisions acts of surrender or courageous acts of self-preservation? Audrey Hepburn's life was a tapestry woven with threads of both profound connection and subtle isolation. Among the most enduring and beautiful was her friendship with Hubert de Givenchy. Their bond, which spanned decades, was a rare oasis of stability and unwavering mutual respect in the turbulent landscape of her life. He was not just her designer, he was her confidant, her aesthetic soulmate, understanding her intrinsic elegance and crafting a timeless image that became synonymous with her name. Their collaboration transcended mere fashion. It was an artistic synergy, a silent conversation expressed through fabric and form. Yet even in this seemingly perfect friendship there was a quiet undercurrent of longing, a subtle sense of her elusive nature. Givenchy himself, in a poignant reflection, once remarked, "She belonged to no one, not even herself." This observation, coming from someone who perhaps knew her best, hinted at a deeper, almost ethereal quality to Audrey, a self-contained essence that even her closest companions could not fully penetrate. It speaks to an inherent independence, perhaps born of her wartime experiences and early abandonment, a core of self-reliance that kept a part of her forever just out of reach. Conversely, her professional relationship with director Billy Wilder, particularly after their collaboration on Sabrina, was marked by a surprising tension. While Sabrina solidified her star power, Wilder, a pragmatic and often acerbic filmmaker, held a nuanced view of her talent. He reportedly found her too fragile to sustain art at scale, implying that her delicate, almost childlike vulnerability, while charming, might limit her ability to tackle more complex, darker roles that demanded a different kind of artistic grit. This was a direct challenge to her identity as a serious actress, suggesting a subtle underestimation of her emotional depth and range. Such critical remarks, even from esteemed colleagues, must have stung, given her deep-seated insecurities about her own abilities. This tension with industry figures highlights the constant pressure she faced to prove herself beyond her ethereal image. Furthermore, Audrey's fierce guarding of her private life, especially during the tumultuous periods of her marriages, often put her at odds with the voracious appetite of the tabloid press. As her marriages unraveled, whispers and scandalous headlines became an unwelcome soundtrack to her personal pain. She recoiled from the public dissection of her heartbreaks, choosing dignified silence over sensationalized confessions. This decision, while protecting her inner sanctuary, inadvertently fueled the gossip mills, creating a chasm between her carefully curated public image and the speculative narratives spun by the media. The press, accustomed to the candid revelations of other stars, viewed her reticence as a challenge, leading to a strained and often antagonistic relationship. This quiet defiance against the invasiveness of celebrity culture underscored her fundamental desire for a life lived on her own terms, free from the relentless, often cruel intrusion of public opinion. After her passing, Audrey Hepburn's image did not fade, but rather underwent a remarkable cultural resurrection, a phenomenon that speaks volumes about her enduring appeal. Her timeless elegance, initially captured in black and white, found new life in vibrant color across diverse mediums. Books, documentaries, and biopics chronicled her life, often reinterpreting her narrative for new generations. Her unique style, pioneered by her collaboration with Givenchy, continued to influence fashion runways and high-street brands alike, from the sleek lines of a Uniqlo collaboration to the continued prominence of Givenchy and Tiffany & Company in popular culture. Her iconic little black dress from Breakfast at Tiffany's remains a quintessential symbol of chic sophistication, endlessly reinterpreted and celebrated. However, this widespread cultural consumption of her image also presented a paradox. The very humility and quiet grace that defined Audrey Hepburn in life seemed to be at odds with the relentless commercialization of her posthumous persona. Her image, once a beacon of understated elegance, became a marketable commodity, emblazoned on everything from coffee mugs to advertising campaigns. This commercialization, while a testament to her lasting power, inadvertently risked diluting the very essence of the woman who had shied away from such overt displays of fame. The question arises, would the unassuming woman who preferred a quiet life in Switzerland have embraced such widespread commercialization of her image? Adding another layer of complexity to her legacy, her son, Sean Hepburn Ferrer, established the Audrey Hepburn Children's Fund. While noble in its intent to continue her humanitarian work, the fund became embroiled in various legal and financial controversies, including disputes over the rights to use her name and likeness. These internal family disagreements, though painful, brought to light the intricate challenges of preserving and honoring a global icon's legacy. particularly when financial interests and differing interpretations of her wishes came into play. It forced a critical examination of how her image should be managed and what truly constituted a faithful representation of her values. Ultimately, the enduring question remains: how would Audrey Hepburn herself want to be remembered? As the epitome of cinematic beauty and grace, a timeless fashion icon whose elegance transcended eras? Or as the fragile woman who, deeply scarred by war and personal heartbreak, found her greatest purpose and profoundest joy in fighting tirelessly for the most vulnerable, traversing war-torn landscapes to bring solace and hope to countless children? Her life was a delicate balance of these two powerful identities. Perhaps her true legacy lies not in one or the other, but in the seamless, often poignant intertwining of both. A beautiful woman who dared to reveal her soul, and in doing so, touched the very heart of humanity. What ultimate message does her life whisper to us across the decades about the true meaning of beauty, purpose, and enduring impact?